thanks for joining us for episode 1 of In the Morning. Once again, I'm Dion.
And I'm Lainey.
And so this first episode, we're going to talk to you a little bit about our history as a couple. I don't know if you can see our mugs here, but this past June, we celebrated 18 years of marriage. And yeah, we're younger than we look. Or older than we look, I don't know, whichever one. But yeah, we're going to tell you take you through our history as a couple and talk about our family a bit.
All right, so we got married in 2007, and we didn't want to have kids right away. We definitely wanted to kind of like wait it out a little bit and have fun with just me and him. So 3 years or so into the marriage, I started kind of getting the itch of wanting to become a mom. And so, I came to him one day. He was working on some schoolwork, and I was like, "Dion, I think I want to be a mom. Like, I want to start a family." And his reaction was not the reaction that I thought it would. He wanted a bit more time with just him and I, and to to accomplish some goals and different things like that. So
just being young and married, we were still both in our early 20s. Mm-hmm. So, not trying to sound messy or anything, but just enjoy your wife and, being a married couple, because kids are a commitment.
Yes, big commitment.
Yeah,
big commitment.
Yeah, I often feel bad that I didn't give her the reaction that she wanted, but it was an honest one.
Yeah, and I would rather an honest reaction than a fake one. So, yes, I honored that time. So I believe in our 4th year marriage, we ended up getting pregnant. And initially, obviously, it's a shock being pregnant for the first time. I don't think anybody really thinks that anything bad will happen. They see the pink lines. They're like, okay, let's go get a checkup and all this stuff or whatever. See the baby, see the heartbeat, all the things. So we ended up getting an appointment scheduled, and we go, and there's no heartbeat. So that was a complete and utter shock. I have a lot of women in my family, and I don't think we ever sat and talked about miscarriage at all. So that wasn't something that I was familiar with. And that made me super nervous.
Yeah, and I think, we'll back up a little bit. We were actually living in Japan at the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember when she, let me know that we were pregnant. It was my birthday was coming up, and she gave me a card, and the card said something about, surprise, you're going to be a dad. And I remember that. And so, as she was saying, I also never heard anything about miscarriages. It's not a subject that ever came up in any conversation that I ever had. Mm-hmm. And so we're a young couple halfway around the world from any of our family members. And, we had this thought, like, when you get pregnant, 9 months later you have a kid.
Yes,
there really wasn't any other thought to that. Mm-hmm. And so to go to the hospital for the checkup and then to tell us that there's no heartbeat, it's kind of like, what are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. So, devastated, I ended up calling my mom, and that's when I discovered that she had miscarriages as well. So I think it'll be safe to say that miscarriage in general, the conversation is a taboo subject. Right. Even the people that are closest to you, they just don't talk about it. They keep it almost kind of hidden.
This thing that we're doing here, we don't have all the answers, and we'll say that up front. We're just talking through our experiences, and maybe that's something in the comments. If y'all, why is it? Why is miscarriages, infertility? Why are those taboo subjects? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's in our community or just
a general thing
where people just don't talk about it. Personally, death, and that is generally a hard topic to discuss.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to giving birth to children, it's always generally perceived as a happy time, or there's a lot of anticipation, there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of just joy that generally comes with being pregnant. So to talk about what happens when you get pregnant,
right,
and you don't bring home that bundle of joy, I think it's a heavy subject for everyone involved.
Maybe that's why it's a hard thing to talk about. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. So fast forward, I believe a year, we got pregnant again. And so now at this, this time we're a little more like, now that we've experienced one miscarriage, now that we're pregnant again, it's still the same. You're excited, you're nervous, all the things, but you're also, you have now this other thing in the back of your mind, like, what if it happens again? So I did get a little bit more further along in this pregnancy.
So for this one, we did hear a heartbeat.
Yes.
We heard a heartbeat. I think we had 2 or 3 appointments where we saw ultrasound even, and so we did have that. I would say fear. I'll admit there was a fear of a miscarriage happening again, but we heard the heartbeat. We saw the ultrasound,
and then even the doctor stated,
I was just, we read literature, we talked to the doctor, and they said, normally when you get to this stage, and there's any doctors out there listening, please correct me, but normally there's a chromosomal thing where it has to match up, and miscarriages happen naturally for that reason. Right. Generally, when you get to the part where the embryo, the fetus has formed, the heart is beating, and those kind of things can be measured, it seems like you've cleared that critical stage. Yeah, and the risk of miscarriage decreases significantly. So I think we still had a, as I say, healthy fear or concern, and anxiety or whatever have you, but we were very optimistic.
So fast forward a little bit, I'm nearing the end of my first trimester, and we have another appointment, and there's no heartbeat. And so now we're like both like, what is going on? Shocked, because again, we saw the heartbeat, saw the baby growing, confused, because is this a sign that we're not going to become parents? That was my fear, that this is a sign that I'm not going to become a mom. So now there's like anxiousness and uncertainty at that point.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about how you felt as a young woman. What, because I think this is, and I'll admit this is where I think men and women kind of diverge in this scenario when this happens. At least for me, I wasn't fully aware of what it meant to her about the miscarriage, because a man can never really experience what a woman experiences with childbirth. I always say that a woman, a mother, is in love with the child from the moment they find out that they're pregnant.
Right.
For a lot of us dads, it doesn't become real until maybe we feel the baby kick. Definitely when we see the baby born. Right. And so at the time of the first miscarriage, personally for me, I was sad, of course, but after learning that it happens, and the reasons why it may have happened, I was like, okay, that doesn't mean we're not going to have children, so we can try again. However, after the second time, when we saw the heartbeat, we saw the baby, it kind of, those thoughts crept up. It's like, is there something wrong? Is there, are we going to be able to do this thing called parenthood? And what I didn't appreciate is, even though I had those concerns, I didn't appreciate how deeply it impacted my wife and what she was feeling about it. And please tell me if I'm wrong, babe, about whether or not you could be a mother.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, since I was younger, I wanted to become the mom. So now that we, have a few years of marriage under our belt and, we got some things accomplished, and I felt like that was the next step, after doing all those things. And because it wasn't happening naturally for me, I almost kind of felt like I was failing somehow, even though what was happening wasn't my fault. I felt like I was failing as a woman, as a wife. I told him after the fact, but I spent a lot of nights crying. Like, while he was asleep, I would, go into another room. Not that I couldn't confide in him, but I just felt like, I don't know. Um, I guess I wanted to be alone in my thoughts, and I would go and I would just cry. I would just cry out to God, like, God, why am I going through this? And like, is there a way? Because this is one of the one things that I absolutely want to become is a mom, and it's just not happening right now, and I don't know why. So it's confusing, it's heartbreaking, and it's scary because, obviously they can't tell me why this is happening. So later, I guess a little bit time passed. I think another year actually.
almost, yeah,
Almost a year passes after the second miscarriage, and we get pregnant again. So, of course, all the feelings that we expressed before, all of that times 10 feels like. So we go to the first ultrasound and we hear a heartbeat, and everything looks good, the baby looks good. More time goes by, and I want to say, I'm not sure if I was out of my first trimester just yet, or maybe I was kind of almost.
I think it was right on the verge of that, and so they do this hormone test. And so I remember we went to the clinic and they did the hormone test, and we were still living in Japan at this time, and so they did the hormone test and we leave. And because they had my contact information listed first, I get a call when I'm sitting in my office at work later that day, and the nurse says, "Mr. Bass, I'm sorry that we have horrible news for you. Your wife's, I believe it was HCG.
Yes, the HCG levels.
Sorry, HCG levels are not where they need to be. They need to be X, and they're all the way down here." Mm-hmm. And I said, "So what does that mean?" She's like, "Well, your wife will likely miscarry soon if she's not already doing so." And so I hang up the phone and call Lainey, and we just start crying. And I had actually one of the people I work with. They were in my office, and they're witnessing all of this, me bawling, crying, and so it was just sad. Another sad moment, and it felt like, man, is this
defeat? Yeah. Like you almost feel defeated. Like 3 times in a row. Why would this is not at this point? I'm like, it's just not going to happen. Yeah. That's how I felt at the time.
But God works in mysterious ways, and I get a call a couple hours later, and it's the nurse again, apologizing profusely. "Mr. Bass, we're so sorry. We're so sorry." And I was like, "Sorry for what?"
Yeah.
I said, we read the chart wrong. Your wife's HCG levels are not only where they're supposed to be, they're exceeding that, by X number. That means that the baby is doing healthy. She's producing the hormones she needs to. So I get off the phone and start crying more, start bawling more, and just thanking God.
Roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, so I call her. It's like, I think I left work and I just needed to go home, and we spent that night just holding each other, yes, praying, rejoicing, crying, and so what, 6 months later. Oh, go ahead, baby.
I think we need to rewind a little bit. I think a few weeks after we had the whole HCG mix up, I started to bleed. So now that was another thing. Like, what is happening? So we get good news, and then some time passed, and then this is happening. I'm bleeding. So we go to the hospital, of course. They take us in the back to do an ultrasound, and baby's heart is still beating. But I guess how everything was looking on the ultrasound, the doctor pretty much told us, you're probably going to miscarry again. And so we're both like in tears, confused, scared, everything. And he was like, there wasn't much that they can do for me then. But he was like, just try to go make yourself comfortable, go home, kind of try to put your feet up a bit. But it looks like you're probably going to miscarry again. And so I forgot which base we were on during that time. But
no, yeah, I remember it was Camp Lester. I think that hospital is no longer there. But we left the hospital. I think we went to our friends'
we did
home. Tim and Marjorie were Hayes.
If y'all watching, hey,
we love you guys. And Tim is a minister, and they prayed over us. They anointed our heads with oil, and just spent time praying and getting in the spiritual trenches with us, yes, and praying for the health and life of our child. We had a great spiritual community there.
We did.
So, lots of other people who prayed for us and took care of us. Mm-hmm. Even the people that I work with, when we had the miscarriages, they were providing food, and it was a really good community, mm-hmm, over there. And so
after that night, we went home, and I would say several weeks passed, and
you're still pregnant.
Still pregnant. We went, had checked the baby, and still there, still heart still beating, and I eventually stopped bleeding as well. We don't know. We still don't know to this day why that happened, but I thank God that we didn't miscarry, and we have now a healthy 12-year-old son named after Dion. He's about big as me. So yeah, that was Junior was our third pregnancy and our first baby.
Yeah, born in Japan is something that he likes to mention as often as possible. Yeah. And so after that, we a little bit more about our journey. We left Japan in 2013, July 2013, came back to the States. And at that time, I thought about changing careers and going to law school. And credit to my wife, she supported me through the whole process. And so we relocated to Florida, to Gainesville, Florida. I attended the UF Law, and going into my final year, back up a step. So we were a family. We had our kiddo. Junior was, just amazing. Being a dad was probably the best thing that I could imagine. So playing with him, watching him grow, it was just, it was really everything that I could hope for, mm-hmm, and more.
Same here. Like I got to do the very thing that I've been wanting for forever. So having Junior, like, oh my gosh, like, and he's still so sweet. He's still, I would say he's sweet on his mama. Yeah. But little boys tend to be that way with their moms. But oh my gosh, just the sweetest thing ever. And he still is to this day. And like Dion said, we, relocated to Gainesville so he can start law school.
And so this is what I think where I was getting to, is because we were kind of in two different mindsets about family. Right?
Yeah.
We were a family. We had our kiddo, and I was pursuing this career. And so, so I was like, we're cool right now. And
yeah.
However, you don't have to do the heavy lifting when it comes to, child birthing and all that kind of stuff. So she had a plan in her head, and we'll tell her what it was.
Yeah, I wanted another baby.
But by when you had a specific time frame on when you wanted to have all your babies by?
Oh, before I turned 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, before I turned 30, I wanted, I don't know what, everybody has like their little laid out plans. Like, I got to have this by this and this by this. So, yes, I wanted to have all of my babies by 30. So, I'm like, we need to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, so her
I was
time.
I was 26 when I had Junior, so I'm like,
so her time frame was more on the biological clock kind of thing. Mine was on the financial thing.
Right.
I want to have kids when I have X amount of dollars in the bank, you know, to make sure I can, you know, buy my kids all the new shoes and clothes and all that kind of stuff that they need. And so, being a student in school, I, you know, not, you know, put my pockets out there, but you know, I was a student, so I was like, this probably isn't the best time financially for us to have another kid.
He made sense, but I wasn't trying to hear that at the time. But again, I honored that, and I wouldn't say you're 3L.
Yeah, third year of law school. You know, we I don't know how to say this. You know, we didn't prevent. We weren't working actively to prevent pregnancy.
Sure. Okay. Well, I will say this. After I had Junior, after I had Junior, I got the next one on. So it's if you don't know, it's a birth control that they put in your arm, and it lasts for 3 years. So I had been on that the whole time. You know, everything's fine and dandy. So
well, actually, no, not everything was fine.
Toward the end of, I want to say, was it the third year? Toward the end of the third year, I had it. I started to have some complications as far as irregularity, and I'll just kind of keep it like that. So I was like, I'm kind of done with this. I want this on my arm, whatever the case. So I ended up finding a place that would remove it, and that was a whole ordeal having that removed. But that's another story for another day. But I had it removed, and literally the month after.
I think so.
Yeah. Yes, I would say, yeah, the month after I had it removed, we ended up getting pregnant, and we by then we were transitioning. We were moving from an apartment to a house, and I just had a feeling. I was like, I know I am pregnant. Like I just have a feeling. I didn't take a test. I wasn't late or anything, but I just had a feeling that I was pregnant. So we ended up moving, and I will say the first week that we moved there, I got a test because I was like,
no, I think it was actually why we were moving in.
Yeah, it was like the week of, I want to say maybe like 2 or 3 days after we moved in. I went and got a test, and sure enough, I didn't even need time for it to like you know, like the little clock to tick. Pregnant. I said, oh my gosh, I knew it.
And so, you know, when that happened, of course, there's a lot of stuff going on. And however, we kind of go back to what we had to endure before Junior was born. So, you know, we're thinking, all right, and if anyone's been pregnant out there and you've either had difficulties or you read the books, all that kind of stuff, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. So like the coffee, you can't do this, you can't do that. So we were all, we were very cautious with this pregnancy because of everything we dealt with, and just because we were, even though this time we were still in the States, we were still, away from our family. So it was kind of just, it was just us. So we wanted to make sure, that Lainey and the baby were good. But, thankfully, well, I wouldn't say the pregnancy was easy. I would say that.
Not at all. Yeah. I was actually teaching at the time, third grade. And shout out to Mrs. Colward, if you're watching. She helped me a lot because I had a lot of rough days, especially in the beginning. And she took me under her wing, literally, and helped me through. But it was a tough pregnancy, but we got through.
Yeah. So that was a good part I was talking about. There was no issues. So that pregnancy turned into our first daughter, Bailey. She was a week late.
Yes.
She wanted to stay in.
She wanted to stay in.
but born healthy. The biggest of all our babies.
Yeah.
And she's a little petite cheerleader now. But yeah, so we were. She was born the month before I graduated law school, and so
she was literally 4 weeks,
yeah.
4 weeks old exactly at his graduation.
And so, of course, we were thankful. Now we had our son, we had our daughter, and then we were on to the next, exciting event. After law school, I got a job working in a firm in Jacksonville, Florida. And so I think graduation happened and had to go take the bar. And the day after I took the bar, we came home, packed up our house, and then moved to Jacksonville, Florida. And, we started our life here. And we kind of remained that family of four for
a long while. Right. And we were content. I don't think after we had Bailey, we didn't have a conversation again about having additional children. Yeah. I think we were both like, we're good. Like, we got our boy, we got our girl. I don't think I really, like how I had the itch, the first time around, and then, the second baby, have that itch to get pregnant again. I wouldn't say that I had that after Bailey. So it was just easy, one is usually with the other, or, so.
You still play man-to-man defense.
Correct.
And, 4 is a good square number.
Yes.
A table at a restaurant for 4.
Exactly.
Like, we were thinking about all, didn't need the big car. You get the smaller mid-size SUV, all this kind of stuff. And it was just, we enjoyed, they, as Bailey and Junior got older, doing more, adventurous things with them.
Right.
And it was fun. It was
super fun. Yeah. So we didn't think about having any more kids, and time passed.
And so, like I mentioned, before we got pregnant with Bailey, we weren't doing anything to prevent it. During this whole time, it was a 4 or 5 year span. We weren't really doing anything to prevent pregnancy. I'm not trying to let y'all on our business like that, but because she didn't, I'll let you speak to that. Your thoughts on birth control and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. So at that point, I had been on birth control for a long time, and I felt like after a while, it started to affect my body physically, affect me mentally. And I know there's a lot of women who are watching this who can relate to how birth control can negatively affect you. Of course, it I guess, there's a percentage that it does its job to prevent the pregnancy, but there's a lot of side effects that come along with that. So I started to feel that after a while, and I was like, I don't think I want to be on birth control anymore. And not to become pregnant, but I just couldn't deal with all of the side effects and how it was affecting me personally. So I believe I got off birth control when Bailey was like 6 months old, and nothing happened for a long while, for several years.
So to anyone out there, like, we got kind of comfortable, I guess you would say. Said we didn't think that we just didn't think it was going to happen.
No,
we didn't think, after all this time,
about 5 years or so. So yeah.
And we kind of gave it away. Obviously, it did happen. So it was, what was it, in August of
2021?
I think 22. So. 21.
Yeah, because Bailey was born in 17.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it was 2021.
Was it 2021 or 2022?
I thought it was over a year before. Well, we'll put the exact date in the comments. But
okay, that's fine. So
nonetheless, go ahead.
I want to say 2022, because I feel like it had been a good 5 years after I had Bailey that we didn't get pregnant.
I think it was sometime. Yeah, that time frame sounds right.
Yeah. So I want to say, yeah, I'm positive that it was 2022 that like he said, it happened again. And now I was in complete and utter shock because I was like, wait a minute, nothing happened for all of this time. And I'm just, it kind of sounds ridiculous saying it, but pop up pregnant. Like, what in the world? But nonetheless, like, after finding out, and again, it was one of those things where I just knew I wasn't late on my period or anything. I just kind of knew, I've kind of felt it. And I took a test, and sure enough, I was pregnant. And so I don't know if I was actually that scared about having another miscarriage. I was actually fairly confident, about the pregnancy. And so me and the kids, we, go to Walmart and we make these shirts called the grand finale. And so they have, and then I get a onesie as well. So he comes home from work, walks in the door, and he sees these homemade shirts, and he's like, what is going on?
Yeah. So yeah, they had shirts made and everything, and so it was a surprise to me. Like I said, after all the time of you know not getting pregnant, I guess you could say. And so we were excited, but I think as the weeks went on, you mentioned it about your pregnancy with Bailey a bit. She'd always have morning sickness that was pretty severe.
Yeah.
It was knocked her off her feet for a bit, but for that pregnancy we're talking about, she didn't really have it.
I wasn't sick at all.
Yeah.
And I guess after the initial shock of being pregnant, and after a while, I kept waiting for the symptoms to show, and after a while, it just nothing would happen, and I'm like, this is not normal because I was sick with Junior and Bailey, extremely sick, and so I guess waiting and waiting and waiting and not feeling sick, it kind of, I don't know, somehow it alarmed me. Even though I know every pregnancy is different, there's some women who they don't get sick at all. They don't feel nothing. Like they're fine the entire pregnancy. But I kind of had an inkling that something wasn't right. And so I tried to schedule, an initial appointment, and the hospital where I was trying to go, they're like, we can't see you until I think you're like 10 weeks or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to wait that long. Again, I just didn't want to wait because I felt after a while, we'll say 7, 8 weeks, I was like, there's something's not right. And so, they were like, well, go and do the HCG test and, see if your numbers are going up and up and up. So I do all that and my numbers aren't going up, but they still wouldn't see me. They still want to wait till I'm 10 weeks. So I'm like, okay. So I decided to call, what do you call it?
Like, just a local clinic that does
ultrasounds. Yeah.
So we went there and they confirmed, what she felt mm-hmm. is that the baby didn't have a heartbeat and she was miscarrying. And so I think it was, how to say it, it was different than the first 2 miscarriages before our son, in the sense that we had 2 kids. We had our son and we had our daughter. But I think it's still, and I don't think, I know it still hurt. Because, we think that every pregnancy is a gift, and we were excited to welcome, the tiebreakers. I think that's what we're calling the baby, into our home, and to learn that we weren't going to be able to do so was hard. Not just for us this time. This time we had, kids that were
that it affected them as well.
I think they were 9 and
5.
4 or 5. Yeah. So they're smart kids. So they understood, they were excited about the prospect of a new brother or sister. And then when, we we sat them down and talked to them about it. They were sad. Um, and I think there was a thought that between us, whether we wanted to do this again or not. And
because like again, before we got pregnant this time, we didn't talk about having additional children. So with us getting pregnant that time, it almost made me get that itch that I was talking about before. Like, should we have a third? So we were kind of, not gonna say up in the air about it, but it was kind of like that a lingering thought, like maybe we could. So again, we went through that miscarriage, and um, I would say 6 months after I we lost that baby, we ended up getting pregnant again. Actually, it was around. I found out right before Valentine's Day.
correct. Yeah,
But,
I just remember I remember how she let me know. Walked into the house and walked into our bathroom, and I think you had written something on the mirror. What? Yeah, put stuff on the mirror with sticky notes and something like the last one said, "You just keep getting me pregnant," and I was like, "What?" Like once again, it feels funny to say it's still a surprise, but it is a surprise every single time, a welcome surprise. But at this time, we're on our sixth sixth pregnancy.
Yeah.
And so, of course, after the miscarriage, it puts you on high alert. You're like, once again, all the things. And I didn't mention this when we were talking about the after the second miscarriage. We started doing all the testing strips and doing like pretty much like the the process of trying to have a kid. It was kind of regimented. Mm-hmm. We didn't do that after the last miscarriage, but as far as our mindset in making sure that she was as comfortable as possible, there was no like outside negative stimuli and all this kind of stuff. We were very on high alert. Mm-hmm. For this one, but thankfully, I would say other than the morning sickness and mm-hmm. I don't think we had any major scares or concerns.
Yeah, toward the end of the pregnancy.
That's true.
I developed preeclampsia.
Okay, I think we should talk about that. That's yeah.
Oh yeah, so toward the end of our sixth pregnancy, I did develop preeclampsia. A super serious condition can cause your blood pressure to skyrocket, and of course, you don't want that because that can trigger other health issues, stroke, just bad things.
And you did have it with
I had it with Junior as well. Yeah. I did have preeclampsia with Junior as well toward the end of the pregnancy. I did not, however, have it with Bailey.
Correct.
But yeah, so toward the end, I developed that, and we ended up having to have our baby 3 weeks early.
Yeah. So and I see my memory fails me sometime. So yeah, so we did have an eventful time towards the end of the pregnancy, and she doesn't say it, but a note to women and men: be an advocate for yourself.
Yes.
Listen to your body. I would say trust your doctors. I think we have medical professionals. They train and so we generally can trust them. However, there will be times, and there may be times where you have to be an advocate for yourself. Mm-hmm. So she wasn't feeling right, and I think it was really early, it was really late at night. Yeah. And she was like, I don't feel right. I think you had a headache, mm-hmm. and your blood pressure was up.
Yeah, I was checking I have a blood pressure cuff here, so I had been checking my blood pressure, and mm-hmm. I was like, these numbers. I'm like, I need to go to the hospital, and it was like 2:00 in the morning.
2:00 in the morning. So so we had, and like I was saying, being an advocate for yourself. This is a couple of times during these pregnancies, and even as we didn't mention this with Bailey, there was an issue afterwards where she had to have a procedure to remove some excess tissue, and the doctors at that time were telling her, "No, you'll be okay. The bleeding is fine." She's like, "No, I need to go and get this taken care of." So she did, and if she hadn't, it could have been bad.
Yeah.
So from I think really from that moment on, you were like, I'm not just going to take.
Yeah, no, I'm just not going to go along with what you're saying and deny my, not listen to my own self and knowing my body. Like he said, listen to your medical professionals. But if you feel like something is wrong, don't ignore that.
Yeah, speak up and do the things that you need to do, because if she, the doctors, and one of the doctors I think specifically told you that if you hadn't gone in, and your blood pressure continued to rise at the rate it was going, you could have had a seizure. And being 37 weeks pregnant, having a seizure is not a good thing.
Yeah.
And so so we packed up, the other two kiddos and headed out to the hospital that she was set to deliver at. And sure enough, they were like, "Yeah, we gotta admit you and get ready for this baby to be on the way." So I guess to wrap that part up is that be an advocate for yourself.
Particularly, I want to say this for Black women, because they're unfortunately for us, we are treated differently in the medical realm, and you cannot just allow people to say, "Oh no, you're fine," or "No, just come back," or "Go put kick your feet up," which is what they told me after I had Bailey. And when I came in, they were like, "Oh, I'm so glad that you came in." Yeah, you think? And I ended up having to have an emergency D&C, because I knew that something wasn't right, even though I was told that you're fine. So please, please, please advocate for yourself. Don't just take no for an answer. If you really feel like something is wrong, don't allow people to kind of diminish or dismiss you. Yeah. Yes, don't do that, because again, with the sixth pregnancy, that was a situation where I'm like, I don't feel right, something's wrong. And then when I did get checked out, oh yeah, something is really wrong. We need to go ahead and admit you.
So take care of yourselves. Do the things that you need to do to make sure you're healthy, and so we'll leave it at that. So another thing we didn't mention as far as with the sixth pregnancy, like I said, we were with the fifth one, we were calling it the tiebreaker because we already had a son and a daughter, and so we carried that same thing over with our sixth pregnancy, and we decided not to find out the gender.
Yes, and that drove a lot of people crazy. Particularly our friends, Devin and Shay. Shay was like, "Lainey, please, we need to know what the sex is. How I'm going to buy the baby stuff if I don't know what the sex is?"
Shout out to the McKnights. We love you guys.
We love y'all.
So going into the hospital amongst all this stuff, well, we were 3 weeks early, so we still hadn't decided on a name.
We did not have a name. Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So that just another kind of crazy thing that happens with parenthood and childbirth. And so she, because of the issue that she went to the hospital with, the preeclampsia, they had to give her certain medications that is cause her to be groggy and kind of it's just tough. And so like, babe, we still got to figure out this name. She's like.
So he's going over names that we had mentioned, like, okay, if you have a boy, it'll be Langston and Langston. So, okay, if it's a boy, it'll be Langston. So what would be the middle name? I don't know. Okay, we'll come back to it. If it's a girl, what name? We could not get it together for the girl name. So I would say, was it even an hour before I delivered, we finally figured it out?
No, I think she was our baby girl was born at, was it 3?
Somewhere in there.
3 p.m. And I think we had the name at noon. So I think it was less than 3 hours before.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. We were cutting it close, but
so.
And he just told y'all that yes, if you're not a family or friends, that it was a girl. Her name is Khalees. And how we got that name really quickly. His middle name is Carrie. My middle name is Elise. Yeah. And so we just kind of combined those two names together. So Khalees, Miss Khalees Lola Iman. She is the sweetest thing ever. Definitely our fight. Yeah, she's very feisty.
Be sweet and sour.
Yes, Sour Patch. We call her our Sour Patch Kid. But yeah, we had Khalees.
And I think so we were dealing with having a newborn after
6 years.
Yeah, 6 years.
Her and Bailey are 6.5 years apart.
So our Khalees and our oldest daughter. Yeah, so some things are like riding a bike, but I will honestly say having a baby when you're in your later 30s is rough.
It's different.
That bike is tough to get back on.
It's definitely different.
Dealing with she was the worst sleeper out of all of them. Oh, fussy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was an adventure. So fast forward.
Oh, definitely different because I was 26 when I had Junior and 36.
Correct.
When I had Khalees.
Yeah.
So
that 10 years hit different.
It did. It definitely did.
And so we're of course we love her and we're enjoying all the stuff that comes with being parents to a newborn again. Our kids were in love with her. They're great helpers, yes. Great big brother, great big sister. And so we're like, all right, we got a different car. Like, hey, we're family of 5 now, party of 5, right? So all right, we got 1 son, 2 daughters. We're good, right? We're good. So, if you caught the intro, you gotta know. No, we weren't done. So I'm sitting. It's late at night, and I got the baby, and I'm sitting in my armchair, my dad chair, rocking her to sleep. And well, let's back up, right? So as you heard for the other pregnancy, we didn't mention this for when we had Khalees. We did a whole little thing with a tug of rope with the kids trying to break the tie. Mm-hmm. We did the shirts and the thing for our 5th pregnancy. She surprised me, with the announcement for the first couple of pregnancies. With Bailey, it was kind of like
cute stuff.
But normally it was some kind of hey, guess what? I'm pregnant, or a surprise. So it was September.
Yes, because Khalees wasn't 1 yet. She wasn't 1.
Yeah.
She was 11 months. So yeah, it was September.
So one night in September, right, sitting downstairs and I'm, rocking the baby to sleep, and
I had that feeling again, y'all, like something. Okay, let me go take a test. Again, wasn't late, anything like that. And I go take a test, and sure enough, them lines popped up. When I was so scared. 30-something, almost 40-year-old woman scared. Girl, you know what you were doing. But scared, like, oh my gosh, our youngest is not even 1 yet. How what are we going to do? And so I'm kind of pacing a little bit, and I was like, before I even go downstairs, let me just pray. So I just dropped to my knees right where I was, and I just started praying over myself, praying over the pregnancy. And then I got up and I went downstairs and I said, I'm pregnant. No.
She was like, just tap me on my shoulder. Like, I ain't even gonna try to do. I'm pregnant again. And it's funny, and I think you find this funny too, because all the other announcements, I'm kind of like in this state of shock,
yes,
right? Because I'm a thinker, I'm a planner, and I'm like, I'm like, how does the baby fit in the plan that's going on and all this kind of stuff like that? And so when she told me this last time, I jumped up with the baby.
Yes, and like, he said it was meant to be. I said, excuse me. He was like, it was meant to be. It was meant. He was so. I think this was like the most excited he was with a pregnancy announcement, and it was just me come downstairs saying I'm pregnant. So I was shocked by that, and I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? This is a lot. So,
and so and I think I was excited, because as you get older, you think differently, no longer thinking like a boy, more thinking like a man, and having, I think the scriptures say something about having a quiver. A man's children is arrows, and having a quiver full. And I was just, I love being a dad. I think if I do anything well, I think sometimes I'm a pretty decent husband.
Yes, you are.
I do all right in my job, but I think God really blessed me to be a dad, and I love it almost as much as anything in this world.
You're a great dad. Thank you. I tell you this all the time.
Yeah, she does. She does.
But you are a fantastic dad.
Thank you. And so, just adding, more kiddos was something I was like, yeah, I'm excited about that. Even though I don't think it was September, like I said, our baby girl wasn't even a year. I don't think we had a full night's sleep that whole time. But I'm like, bring it on. Let's do this.
It's like we might as well. Like we already got a bunch of kids anyways. Might as well add to it.
And so, right, we go. All right, yeah, you can take it from there. Go ahead.
So I would say I got my first ultrasound in November. I remember because it was right before my birthday, and I was about 7 weeks. We see the baby. We see a strong heartbeat. This being
we got kids, so if y'all hear them screaming in the background, please excuse us.
It's okay. But with this being our 7th pregnancy, I'm 38. And past history of pregnancy loss, they definitely took a lot more precautions with setting me up with a what do you call it, like a specialist or
you had the same thing with
Khalees.
With Khalees, so additional screenings and testing and everything. I mean, and so
high risk, high risk.
And so with that, we actually did the whole, I don't know, with the panel of screening, the test,
the genetic testing.
Yeah, the genetic testing, and so it comes back. We're not waiting to find out. The genetist like, okay, we've been there, done that, and so it comes back. Well, you knew first because I remember I'm asking her, like, did that testing come back? It's been like a couple weeks. What's happening? And so she was.
Was it at 11 weeks? I think roughly like 11, 12 weeks. That's when they normally do, or generally, it may be different for other people, but we had our genetic testing done then. And so with the testing for abnormalities, they also can find out what the sex is. So we, had that testing done, and I want to say, was it December? Around December, we got the results back, and we found out that it was a girl.
But yeah, you got it back first. She did a little reveal to us.
Yes. I did a whole like a little gender reveal at home. I got some cupcakes from Publix, and I got the frosting, a pink frosting, and stuff it in the cupcakes or whatever. And I had them do their predictions. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I think, I don't know. Did you say girl? I know that I want to say Junior and Bailey said boy.
Yeah, I said girl.
Yeah, so the kids said boy. I think they kind of wanted to balance it out. So 2 girls, 2 boys. So bit into the cupcake, and it's a girl. And our son, he was like, "Oh my god!"
So you're gonna be outnumbered, kiddo.
Yeah. So we found out we were having another girl. The pregnancy is going like how it went for the other one, sick as a dog.
Yeah, and then so that is true. And then, I would tell most men, dads, to be husbands don't do what I did. But, as it's going along, I'm like, your stomach is looking really big.
But it wasn't just him that was saying that.
Yeah.
He was saying that, and then we had several family members that was like, Lisa, you kind of big to be, 3 months. You're looking kind of. You sure is it? They kept saying, you sure it's just one? You sure it's just one? I'm like, it's one. We had an ultrasound done.
Yeah.
And there's just one baby in there. And then we also had the genetic testing done, and the test said girl, just said one girl.
And so that she was actually supposed to be seen and have an ultrasound done, but I forgot what happened and we missed it.
Yeah, and toward the end of December, we were supposed to have the ultrasound done to see the general health of the baby. And unfortunately, this hospital, they don't allow small children. So I brought Khalees, and they're like, you're going to have to reschedule because you have a child with you. And I'm like, that was a whole thing.
So we had to get that rescheduled and everything. So we didn't get that rescheduled until February. And so, I drop her off for the appointment, and I have our daughter, and I'm just hanging out with her. Mm-hmm. And while she's up there, she gives me a call, and
yeah, so they get me checked in, and she was like, "Okay, let's get started." And so she puts the wand on my belly, and she's going back and forth, and I see a look on her face, and I'm like, why are you looking like that? Is everything okay? And she looks at me and she says, twins?
Hey everyone, this is Dion again.
And Lainey.
Thank you all for joining us for the first episode of In the Morning. We appreciate your time and walking on this journey with us. We ask that you all come back. Please come back for episode 2.
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yeah, we're going to be talking more about our journey in parenthood and those twins, as we mentioned.
Yes. So
thank you all.
We'll see you guys then.
See ya.